Victoria Chen stood in the marble lobby of Sterling Global Industries, clutching her nanny agency contract and wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake taking a job in a building that cost more than her entire neighborhood. The lobby stretched up 4 stories, all glass and polished stone, with a chandelier that probably cost more than her mother's annual memory care fees. Victoria smoothed down her practical navy cardigan, suddenly aware of how out of place she looked among the sleek executives striding past in designer suits. Before we begin, leave a comment telling us what city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. The receptionist glanced up from her computer, took one look at Victoria's worn canvas bag and sensible shoes, and her expression shifted from professional smile to barely concealed condescension. "Can I help you?" she asked, the question clearly meaning you don't belong here. "I'm Victoria Chen. I have an appointment with Mr. Sterling for the childcare position." The receptionist's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly. "Oh. You're the help." She gestured vaguely to the left. "Service elevator is that way, penthouse level, and next time the staff entrance is around back." Victoria felt heat rise in her cheeks but kept her voice level. "Thank you. I'll remember that." The service elevator was tucked behind a frosted glass partition, a world away from the gleaming main elevators with their brass fixtures and marble floors. Victoria stepped inside the cramped space, noting the scuff marks on the walls and the flickering fluorescent light. She pressed the button marked PH and watched the numbers climb. 2 weeks, she told herself, watching her reflection in the dingy elevator mirror. Just 2 weeks. I can survive anything for 2 weeks. The elevator lurched upward and Victoria closed her eyes, thinking about the $18 per hour the agency had promised, paid daily in cash, plus the $500 bonus if she could handle what they'd called a challenging emergency placement. That money would cover 3 days of her mother's care. 3 days where she wouldn't have to worry about discharge notices or past due bills. She'd once negotiated trade agreements between nations. She'd sat across from ambassadors and ministers, translating nuanced diplomatic language that could make or break international partnerships. And now she was riding a service elevator to watch a 6-year-old for $18 an hour. The elevator dinged. Victoria opened her eyes, straightened her shoulders, and lifted her chin. "Diplomats don't let anyone see them sweat," her father used to say, "even when they're broke." The doors opened to a private hallway, all cream carpeting and contemporary art. At the far end, floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a breathtaking view of the city. Victoria walked forward, her footsteps silent on the plush carpet, and pressed the doorbell at the only door visible. It opened almost immediately. A man stood there, phone pressed to his ear, barely glancing at her. He was tall, dark-haired, probably mid-30s, wearing a suit that screamed expensive even to Victoria's untrained eye. His face was all sharp angles and irritation. "I don't care if the translator is sick," he said into the phone. "Find another one. The JAL meeting is in 2 days and I'm not postponing." He gestured for Victoria to come in without looking at her, still talking. "No, Vanessa, no excuses, make it happen." He ended the call and finally turned to look at Victoria, his expression impatient. "You're the emergency placement?" "Victoria Chen, from Elite Care Agency." "Fine." He barely looked at her, already turning back toward his office. "Keep him fed, quiet, and out of my office. I don't need to know anything about you except that you can handle a 6-year-old. Mr. Sterling, I'm in the middle of the biggest deal of my career. Just do your job." He walked into what appeared to be a home office, the door half closing behind him. Victoria stood in the entrance, taking in the penthouse. It was stunning, all clean lines and expensive furniture, but somehow sterile, like a showroom, not a home. A crash came from down the hallway. "I hate it here," A child's voice screamed, "I want my mom!" Victoria set down her bag and walked toward the voice. She found a small boy in the living room, toys scattered everywhere, a lamp lying on its side. He had dark hair like his uncle and tears streaming down his face. When he saw her, he grabbed another toy and raised it threateningly. "Go away, I don't want another stupid nanny." Victoria sat down on the floor, not approaching him, just settling cross-legged on the expensive carpet. "That's fair. You don't know me yet, I'm Victoria." "I don't care." He threw the toy, but it sailed past her harmlessly. "You must be Jamie." "So what?" "So I heard your mom had to go to California for a family emergency. That must be really scary." Jamie's face crumpled. "She said 2 weeks. But what if she doesn't come back?" "She'll come back," Victoria said gently. 2 weeks isn't very long. That's only 14 sleeps." "That's a lot of sleeps." "It is," Victoria agreed. "Want to know a secret?" Jamie eyed her suspiciously but nodded. "When I was little, my dad traveled a lot for work. Sometimes he'd be gone for weeks. My mom taught me a trick. Every night I'd tell him one good thing that happened that day. Even when he was far away, it made him feel close. But my mom's not here. We could call her, or text her a picture. Every day, one good thing." Jamie considered this, lowering his defensive posture slightly. "What if nothing good happens?" "Then we'll make something good happen." Victoria noticed the toys scattered around. "Do you like to build things?" "Sometimes." "What about stories? Do you like stories?" "My mom reads to me every night." His voice got small. "Uncle, Xander doesn't read stories, he's always working." Victoria felt a pang of sympathy for this lonely little boy. "I like stories too. And I know stories from all over the world. Ever heard about China?" "My mom's boyfriend is from there," Jamie said, sitting down but keeping his distance. "I'm supposed to meet him when she gets back. What if he doesn't like me?" "Why wouldn't he like you?" "I don't know anything about China. What if I say something wrong?" "Well," Victoria said, "let me tell you something cool. Did you know that China invented ice cream over 1,000 years ago?" Jamie's eyes widened. "Really?" "Really. And paper. And compasses. China has an incredible history." "Have you been there?" "Many times. My father's job took us all over the world when I was growing up." "What did your dad do?" Victoria paused, choosing her words carefully. "He helped countries understand each other. Like a translator, but for cultures, not just words." "That sounds cool." Jamie scooted a little closer. "Can you teach me about China?" "Absolutely. How about we start with some simple words? That way, when you meet your mom's boyfriend, you can say hello in Mandarin. I bet that would make him smile." "Okay," Jamie said, his tears drying. "What's hello?" "Ni hao. It sounds like ni hao." "Try it. Ni hao." "Perfect. See, you're already learning." From the office doorway, Xander Sterling stood silently. Phone call abandoned. He'd come out to tell the nanny to keep the kid quiet, but he'd stopped when he heard the conversation. The woman was speaking to Jamie with genuine respect, not the condescending baby talk most adults used. And she was teaching him Mandarin? He watched as Jamie moved closer to her, asking questions about China, his earlier tantrum completely forgotten. The nanny answered each question thoughtfully, making complex cultural concepts accessible to a 6-year-old without dumbing them down. "Can you teach me to count?" Jamie asked. "Of course. 1 is while, 2 is air, 3 is san." Jamie repeated after her, stumbling over the pronunciations, but she patiently corrected him with encouragement, not criticism. Xander found himself listening too. Her Mandarin pronunciation was flawless, not the stilted textbook kind he usually heard from American speakers. It sounded native, natural. "You're really good at this," Jamie said, clearly impressed. "I've had a lot of practice," she replied with a smile. When you grow up around different languages, they become like different colors. Each one shows you the world in a new way. What other languages do you speak? A few. French, Spanish. They all have their own music. Xander felt something uncomfortable stir in his chest. This wasn't what he'd expected from an emergency placement nanny. She was educated, sophisticated, clearly overqualified for childcare. What was someone like this doing taking an 18-per-hour emergency job? He stepped back into his office before either of them noticed him watching. The Zhao deal required his attention. He couldn't afford to get curious about the help. That's all she was. Hired help for 2 weeks until his sister got back and took Jamie home. He returned to his desk, but his eyes kept drifting to the doorway. In the living room, he could hear Victoria and Jamie laughing together as they practiced counting in Mandarin. Xander picked up his phone to call his attorney, but paused. The penthouse was usually silent except for the hum of his computer and the occasional call. Now it was filled with a child's laughter and a woman's patient voice. It had been a long time since this place felt like anything but an expensive box where he occasionally slept between meetings. He shook his head and dialed. He didn't have time for distractions. The Zhao Corporation meeting was in 2 days, and if that fell apart, the entire Asian expansion collapsed with it. Whatever curiosity he felt about the nanny with the perfect Mandarin and the kind eyes, he'd ignore it. He was very good at ignoring things that complicated his carefully controlled world. 3 days passed in a comfortable rhythm. Victoria arrived each morning at 7, and by the time Xander emerged from his bedroom office, Jamie was fed, dressed, and actually happy. The penthouse no longer echoed with tantrums and broken toys. Instead, there was laughter, the sound of a child asking endless questions and Victoria's patient answers. Xander told himself he didn't notice. He was too busy preparing for the Zhao Corporation meeting, the deal that would make or break Sterling Global's entire Asian expansion strategy. $500 million hung in the balance, along with partnerships that could triple the company's international presence. But he did notice. He noticed that Jamie ran to greet Victoria each morning. He noticed that she had reorganized the penthouse playroom with a system that somehow made sense to a 6-year-old brain. He noticed that she spoke to Jamie in Mandarin during breakfast, and the kid was actually learning. And he noticed that she never asked him for anything. Not for advances on her pay, not for special treatment, not for acknowledgement. She did her job with quiet competence and dignity, then left each evening at 6 o'clock sharp, returning to whatever life she led outside his expensive walls. On Thursday afternoon, everything changed. Victoria had taken Jamie to the park that morning, then to the Children's Museum. They'd returned for lunch, and Jamie was happily building with blocks in the living room while Victoria prepared his afternoon snack in the kitchen. The plan was simple: snack, quiet time with books. Then an educational video about space that Jamie had been begging to watch. But Jamie, being 6, had a different plan. "Tori," he called from the living room. "I can't find my shark." Victoria emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. "The stuffed one or the toy one?" "The toy one. The blue shark that Uncle Xander got me." "Did you check your room?" "Yes, it's not there. I think I left it in Uncle Xander's office." Victoria hesitated. Xander had been very clear: stay out of his office. Don't touch anything. Don't interrupt. "Jamie, your uncle is working. We can look for it later." "But I need it now. Please, Tori, please." The pleading in his voice was hard to resist. Victoria sighed. "All right, but we have to be very quiet and very quick. In and out." They walked down the hallway to Xander's home office. Victoria knocked softly. No answer. She knocked again. Still nothing. "He's probably on a call," she whispered to Jamie. "Let's just peek in and grab your shark, okay?" She opened the door carefully. The office was empty. Xander must have gone down to the main offices. Jamie ran inside, heading straight for the corner where he'd apparently been playing during a previous visit. "Found it!" he declared triumphantly, holding up a blue plastic shark. "Great. Now let's go before—" "Victoria?" Xander's voice came from the doorway. He stood there in his suit, holding a leather portfolio, his expression unreadable. "What are you doing in my office?" "I apologize, Mr. Sterling. Jamie left his toy here and—" "I told you not to come in here." "I know, and I'm sorry, we were just retrieving—" "Uncle Xander, don't be mad at Tori," Jamie interjected. "It was my fault. I left my shark and I asked her to—" "Jamie, go to your room," Xander said, his voice tight. "But—" "Now," Jamie fled, clutching his shark. Victoria stood her ground, meeting Xander's eyes. "He's 6 years old and he was upset. I made a judgment call. If that's unacceptable, I understand, but don't take it out on him." Something flickered in Xander's expression. "I'm not taking anything out on him." "No? Because he thinks you're angry at him and he'll spend the rest of the afternoon worrying about it." "That's not—" Xander stopped, running a hand through his hair. "I'm not angry at Jamie." "Then maybe tell him that. He adores you, even if you're too busy to notice." Xander opened his mouth, then closed it. Victoria walked past him out of the office. She heard him call after her, but she was already heading to Jamie's room. She found the boy sitting on his bed, tears threatening. "Is Uncle Xander going to fire you?" "No, sweetheart. He looked really mad. He's stressed about work. Sometimes adults forget that stress isn't the same as anger." "I don't want you to leave," Jamie said quietly. "You're the only one who doesn't think I'm annoying." Victoria sat beside him, putting an arm around his shoulders. "You're not annoying. You're smart and curious and kind. Never let anyone make you feel otherwise." From the hallway, Xander stood listening. The uncomfortable feeling in his chest grew stronger. An hour later, Victoria needed to bring Jamie's forgotten lunch container to Xander's office building. Jamie had insisted on bringing his special lunchbox that morning, then completely forgotten to eat from it. Victoria figured she'd drop it off with the front desk so Xander could bring it home that evening. But when she walked through Sterling Global's executive floor with Jamie in tow, chaos was spilling out of the main conference room. Through the glass walls, Victoria could see at least a dozen people in business attire. 3 men in expensive suits were standing, clearly preparing to leave. One of them was speaking rapid, angry Mandarin. The others looked panicked. A young woman who appeared to be the translator stood frozen, her face pale. Victoria slowed, listening. The man was saying something about insults and disrespect. Then she heard the phrase that made her stop completely. "Wang Ba Dan," the translator said in Mandarin, attempting to translate something from English back to the Chinese executives. Victoria's eyes widened. "Oh no." "Tori, why did you stop?" Jamie asked. "Stay here," she said quietly, guiding him to a bench in the hallway. "Don't move. I'll be right back." "But, Jamie, this is important. Stay." The Chinese executives were heading toward the elevator. The lead executive, an older gentleman with silver hair and an expression of pure affront, was speaking to his colleagues in clipped formal Mandarin. "We were right to be cautious. These Americans have no respect for proper business relationships. To use such language in a formal negotiation." Victoria's diplomatic training kicked in before her common sense could stop her. She stepped forward, speaking in formal Beijing Mandarin, using the highest register of respect. "Zunjing de Zhao Zhuxi, please forgive this terrible misunderstanding." All 3 Chinese executives stopped. They turned to stare at her. The lead executive, Chairman Zhao, studied her with sharp eyes. "You speak Mandarin," he said in Mandarin, his tone surprised but still cold. "Who are you?" "A friend of the family," Victoria replied smoothly in Mandarin, using the proper honorific titles. "And I must apologize on behalf of Sterling Global. Your translator made a critical error. An error? Chairman Zhao's voice was skeptical. Yes, sir. The phrase she used, Wang Ba Dan, it carries a grave insult in Mandarin. It suggests disrespect toward one's mother. I know this was not Sterling Global's intention. They have the utmost respect for you and for Zhao Corporation. One of the other executives whispered something to Chairman Zhao. He nodded slowly, his posture shifting slightly. Your Mandarin is excellent, he said, still in Mandarin. Where did you learn? My father was a diplomat with the U.S. State Department. I grew up in Beijing for several years. I have deep respect for Chinese culture and business philosophy. Chairman Zhao's expression softened marginally. And what is it you think Sterling Global meant to say? Inside the conference room, Xander had noticed the Chinese executive stop. He'd rushed to the hallway and now stood frozen, watching his nanny speaking flawless Mandarin to the most important business partner his company had ever courted. What the hell? He whispered. His COO, Richard Hayes, appeared beside him. Who is that woman? She's the nanny. Your nanny speaks Mandarin? They watched as Victoria continued speaking with the executives, her body language respectful, her tone perfectly calibrated. Chairman Zhao, Victoria said, I believe what Mr. Sterling wanted to convey was a commitment to long-term partnership built on mutual respect and shared vision. In Chinese business philosophy, there's a concept, guanxi. It means relationships built over time with trust and integrity. That's what Sterling Global wants to build with Zhao Corporation. Chairman Zhao studied her for a long moment. You understand guanxi? I do, sir. And I understand that true partnership isn't about quick profits. It's about building something that honors both parties, that creates value for years to come. This translator, Chairman Zhao gestured back toward the conference room. She speaks the words, but she doesn't understand the meaning. Many people speak languages without understanding the culture behind them, Victoria said carefully. It's a common problem in international business. And you understand our concerns? Our real concerns. Victoria took a breath. This was the moment. Your concerns aren't about the financial terms, sir. The money is acceptable. Your concerns are about whether Sterling Global will treat Zhao Corporation as an equal partner, or as a subordinate acquisition. You want assurance that your company's legacy and your employees' futures will be respected. Chairman Zhao's eyebrows rose. Behind him, his colleagues exchanged surprised looks. How do you know this? Because that's what I would be concerned about if I were in your position, Victoria said simply. Money is replaceable. Dignity is not. Inside the conference room, Xander's board members were gathered at the glass, watching the exchange with expressions ranging from shock to confusion. Can anyone understand what they're saying? Someone asked. She's saving the deal, Richard said quietly. I don't know how, but she's saving it. Chairman Zhao turned to his colleagues, speaking rapidly in Mandarin. They responded, nodding. The tension in their posture eased slightly. Then Chairman Zhao turned back to Victoria. We will return to the meeting, he said in English now, clearly for Sterling Global's benefit. But we wish to have you present, as a cultural consultant. I'm not an employee of Sterling Global, Victoria began, but Chairman Zhao raised his hand. Then we will wait until you are. Mr. Sterling, he called toward the conference room. We will continue these negotiations, but only with this woman present. She understands what your translators do not. Xander stepped into the hallway, his mind racing. Of course, Chairman Zhao, whatever you need. Good. We will return tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. With proper cultural understanding, I think we can reach an agreement. He turned to Victoria. What is your name? Victoria Chen, sir. Chen, he repeated, recognition in his eyes. A Chinese surname. Your father was American diplomat Samuel Chen. Victoria's breath caught. You knew my father? I met him twice, in Beijing many years ago. He was a man of great integrity. Chairman Zhao bowed slightly. It's an honor to meet his daughter. You have his gift for seeing the heart of matters. Thank you, sir, Victoria said, her voice tight with emotion. The Chinese executives left, their earlier anger transformed into measured optimism. The moment the elevator doors closed, the conference room erupted. Who the hell is that woman? Someone demanded. Where did she learn Mandarin like that? Did she just save a $500 million deal? Xander stood in the hallway staring at Victoria. She was straightening her cardigan, clearly uncomfortable with all the attention. Jamie had hopped off his bench and was tugging at her sleeve. Tori, what happened? Were those men mad? Not anymore, sweetheart. Xander walked up to her slowly. My office, now. Victoria met his eyes, that quiet dignity still intact. Jamie needs... My assistant will watch him, my office, please. There was something in his voice that wasn't quite anger, wasn't quite shock. Victoria nodded. Jamie, stay with this nice lady for a few minutes, okay? The assistant, a woman named Mariana, led Jamie away, offering him cookies from her desk drawer. Victoria followed Xander to his private office, the executive suite that took up an entire corner of the building. He closed the door behind them. For a long moment, neither spoke. Where did you learn to speak Mandarin like that? Xander finally asked, his voice carefully controlled. Does it matter? You hired me to watch Jamie, not translate. Don't. He turned to face her. Don't deflect. I just watched you salvage the most important deal in this company's history. You spoke Mandarin like a native. You understood business philosophy our entire consulting team couldn't grasp. So I'll ask again. Who are you? Victoria kept her voice level. I'm someone who grew up in diplomatic circles, someone who speaks several languages, someone who understands cross-cultural communication, and currently someone you hired to take care of your nephew. You're overqualified to be a nanny. I'm qualified to do exactly what I choose to do, Mr. Sterling. Stop calling me that, it's Xander. I thought we agreed I'm the help. The help doesn't use first names. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. Look, I need you. Here, working on this deal, I'll pay you. Name your price. I appreciate the offer, but I made a commitment to Jamie for 2 weeks. I don't break commitments. Xander stared at her. You just saved $500 million in 10 minutes. I'm offering you a consulting position. Why would you turn that down? Because everyone has a price isn't actually true, Victoria said quietly. Some things matter more than money. Everyone has a price. Perhaps that's been your experience, Mr. Sterling. It hasn't been mine. This is insane. You could be making... What I could be making isn't the point. Victoria's voice sharpened. I gave Jamie my word. He's already been abandoned by everyone who's supposed to care for him. I'm not going to be another adult who breaks a promise the moment something better comes along. The words landed like a physical blow. Xander stepped back, something in his expression shifting. I didn't abandon him. I didn't say you did, but you barely speak to him. He worships you and you can't be bothered to spend 10 minutes asking about his day. I'm running a company. And he's 6 years old and scared his mother won't come back. Which do you think matters more? The silence stretched between them, charged with things neither could quite articulate. You don't understand what's at stake here, Xander said finally. I understand exactly what's at stake. But I also understand that in 20 years, Jamie won't care about your profit margins. He'll remember whether you were there for him or not. Victoria walked toward the door, then paused. Also, you've been pronouncing Chairman Zhao's name wrong. It's Zhao with a falling tone, not Zhao with a rising tone. The tone changes the meaning. You've been accidentally calling him Date instead of using his surname. She opened the door. Victoria. She turned back. Thank you, Xander said quietly, for what you did out there. I didn't do it for you. I did it because watching people misunderstand each other when I could help felt wrong. She left, closing the door behind her. Xander stood alone in his office, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath his feet. He picked up her nanny agency file from his desk. Name, emergency contact, references, nothing else. No education history, no previous employment. Just a check mark that said background cleared and a note, available for immediate placement. Who the hell was Victoria Chen? And why was someone with her skills working for $18 an hour? That evening, Xander did something he never did. He went home at 6 o'clock. Victoria was helping Jamie put together a puzzle at the dining table when he walked in. Both looked up, surprised. You're home early, Victoria said carefully. I thought I'd have dinner with Jamie. He loosened his tie. If that's all right. It's your home. Tori and I were going to have mac and cheese, Jamie offered. Do you want some? Mac and cheese sounds perfect. Victoria stood. I can make it and then… Stay, Xander said. Please join us. She hesitated, then nodded. All right. Dinner was strange and surprisingly pleasant. Jamie chattered about his day at the museum, about the stars and planets he'd learned about. Victoria answered his questions with the same patient intelligence Xander had noticed before. And for the first time, Xander actually listened. Did you know, Jamie said, mouthful of macaroni, that some stars are already dead but we can still see them? Because their light takes so long to get here? I did know that, Xander said. It's pretty amazing. Tori says it's like memories. Even when things are gone, they still shine. Xander glanced at Victoria. She met his eyes, something sad and knowing in her expression. That's a beautiful way to think about it, he said quietly. After dinner, after Jamie was tucked into bed with a story read in English and then, at his request, summarized in Mandarin, Victoria gathered her things to leave. Xander met her at the door. The offer stands, he said. Consulting position, whatever salary you want. And Jamie? We'll hire another nanny. Victoria shook her head. Then no, I told you I don't break my word. Even for financial security? Especially for that. The moment you use money to justify breaking promises is the moment you've lost something more valuable than any paycheck. She opened the door to leave, then turned back. For what it's worth, I hope the Zhao negotiation goes well tomorrow. You should prepare by understanding the concept of Mianzi, which is face, reputation, dignity, social standing. It's everything in Chinese business culture. Don't just offer them money, offer them respect. Public acknowledgement of Zhao Corporation's achievements. Let them save face while still accepting your terms. How do you know this? Victoria smiled slightly. My father used to say that the best diplomats aren't the ones who speak the most languages. They're the ones who understand that every culture has its own way of saying, I matter. Your father was a diplomat? Good night, Mr. Sterling. She left before he could ask more questions. 20 minutes later, Xander heard the elevator again. He looked up from his laptop to see a woman in a designer suit stepping into the penthouse. Vanessa Hartley, his COO, holding a folder. We need to talk about what happened today, she said without preamble. It's late, Vanessa. This can't wait. She set the folder on his desk. Who is Victoria Chen? My nanny. Your nanny who speaks fluent Mandarin and just single-handedly saved the Zhao deal? Vanessa's tone was sharp. Xander, this woman has been in your home for 3 days. We know nothing about her. She's from the agency. She's been background checked. By the agency, not by us, not by our security team. Vanessa opened the folder. I want to run a full background check. credit history, employment records, everything. That seems excessive, does it? A mysterious woman appears, has access to your home, overhears sensitive business conversations, and then dramatically saves a deal at exactly the right moment. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. You don't find that convenient? You think she's a corporate spy? I think we should know who she is before we trust her with anything important. Xander wanted to argue, but Vanessa had a point. They knew nothing about Victoria. Fine. Run the background check. Already ordered it. We'll have results by tomorrow. After Vanessa left, Xander stood at his window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Victoria Chen was going home to a life he knew nothing about. Tomorrow he'd have answers. Tonight he just had questions. And the uncomfortable realization that in 3 days, the nanny had made more of an impact on his life than anyone had in the past 2 years. The background check arrived at 8 o'clock Friday morning, delivered by Sterling Global's head of security personally. Xander opened the file in his home office while Victoria and Jamie ate breakfast in the kitchen, their voices carrying down the hallway in a mix of English and Mandarin. The first page was standard information: name, address, social security number. But then came the education section. Georgetown University Bachelor of Arts in International Relations, magna cum laude. Master of Arts in International Relations and Cultural Studies, 3.9 GPA. Xander stopped reading, went back, read it again. Georgetown, one of the top diplomatic programs in the country. He turned the page. Employment history, United States Department of State, Bureau of East Asian and Pacific Affairs. Position: Junior Cultural Liaison and Translator. Duration: 2 years. Security clearance active during employment. Xander sat back in his chair, his mind reeling. Languages: Mandarin Chinese, fluent, native level proficiency, French, fluent, Spanish, conversational, English, native. Additional information: father was Samuel Chen, career U.S. diplomat with 28 years of service, stationed in Beijing, Paris, and Brussels. Deceased 18 months ago, cardiac arrest. Mother Rose Chen currently resides at Summit Memory Care Facility, diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's disease. Financial status: significant medical debt, approximately $180,000 combined from father's final medical expenses and ongoing care costs for mother. Monthly care facility expenses, $8,500. Xander closed the file slowly. The picture was suddenly devastatingly clear. Victoria Chen wasn't working as a nanny because she lacked options. She was working as a nanny because she needed immediate cash to keep her mother in care. She'd walked away from a promising diplomatic career, from a life of intellectual fulfillment and purpose, to take whatever work paid daily and kept her close to home. She gave up everything, he murmured to himself. He thought about her dignity, the way she refused to explain herself, refused to be pitied. And he thought about how he'd treated her. Like furniture, like hired help beneath his notice. Samuel Chen. Xander pulled up his phone and searched the name. Articles appeared, obituaries from diplomatic circles, tributes calling him a brilliant negotiator, a cultural bridge builder, a man of extraordinary integrity. One photo showed Samuel Chen at a summit in Beijing, standing with other diplomats. His daughter stood beside him, younger, in professional attire, clearly there as part of his team. Xander recognized her eyes, that same quiet dignity, the same intelligence. He'd met Samuel Chen once 5 years ago at an international trade conference. They'd spoken briefly about cross-cultural business challenges. The man had been remarkable, thoughtful, deeply knowledgeable. And Victoria was his daughter, carrying on his work in her own way, even while cleaning up mac and cheese and teaching a 6-year-old to count in Mandarin. Xander stood, picked up the file, and walked to his private safe. He locked it inside. Vanessa would want to see it, but something in him resisted sharing Victoria's story. It felt private, sacred even. In the kitchen, Victoria was helping Jamie sound out Chinese characters she'd written on flashcards. Ni hao, Jamie read carefully. That's hello, right? Perfect, and this one? Xie xie, that's thank you. Victoria smiled, and Xander saw something in her expression he hadn't noticed before. Not just patience with a child, but genuine joy in teaching and passing on knowledge. This was who she was meant to be. A teacher, a diplomat, a bridge between cultures. And she was making mac and cheese for $18 an hour. Mr. Sterling? Victoria noticed him in the doorway. Did you need something? No, He paused. You're doing a great job with him. She looked surprised. Thank you. I mean it. He's learning. He's happy. That's because of you. Victoria studied him, trying to read the shift in his tone. He's a wonderful kid. It's not hard to teach someone who wants to learn. Xander wanted to say more, wanted to tell her he knew, that he understood now, that he was sorry. But the words stuck in his throat. The Zhao meeting is this morning, he said instead. Would you consider attending, as a consultant? I thought we discussed this. Chairman Zhao specifically requested you be there. Victoria hesitated. What about Jamie? My assistant can watch him for a few hours. Please, Victoria. I'm asking, not ordering. She met his eyes, searching for something. Finally, she nodded. All right, but only because Chairman Zhao requested it. 2 hours later, Victoria sat in the Sterling Global Conference Room wearing the same practical cardigan and slacks she'd worn yesterday. Around her, executives wore $1,000 suits and designer jewelry. She tied her hair back in a simple ponytail. No makeup except a touch of lip balm. She looked completely out of place and completely unbothered by it. Chairman Zhao arrived with his team precisely at 10. His eyes found Victoria immediately, and he smiled. Miss Chen, I'm pleased you're here. The honor is mine, Chairman Zhao. The negotiation that followed was a masterclass in cultural intelligence. Every time the American side proposed something that might inadvertently offend, Victoria gently redirected. When the Chinese team expressed concerns in oblique language, she translated not just the words, but the meaning beneath them. Chairman Zhao just said the timeline is ambitious, the official translator said. Victoria leaned toward Xander and whispered, What he means is it's unrealistic and shows you haven't fully considered the implementation challenges. Suggest a phased approach and ask for his input on realistic milestones. Xander nodded and adjusted his proposal accordingly. Chairman Zhao's posture relaxed. 3 hours later, the framework for a partnership was in place. Not just a business deal, but a genuine collaboration built on mutual respect. As the Chinese team prepared to leave, Chairman Zhao spoke to Victoria in Mandarin. Your father would be proud of you. Thank you, sir. That means more than you know. When this partnership is formalized, I hope Sterling Global will have the wisdom to utilize your talents properly. After they left, the conference room erupted. That was incredible, Richard Hayes, the COO, said. Victoria, where did you learn to do that? Experience, she said simply, gathering her things. We need to talk about a permanent position, Richard continued. Cultural consulting may be a full department. I'm here temporarily, Victoria cut in. Just helping with this particular negotiation. But surely, if you'll excuse me, I need to get back to Jamie. She left before anyone could argue. Xander followed her into the hallway. Victoria, wait! She turned and he saw exhaustion in her eyes. Not physical tiredness, but something deeper. I saw your file, he said quietly. The background check. Her expression closed immediately. Of course you did. Georgetown, the State Department, your father. Is there a point to this conversation? Why didn't you tell me? Because it doesn't matter. I'm not that person anymore. Yes, you are. You're exactly that person. You just proved it in there. Victoria shook her head. That person had a career and a future. I have a mother who doesn't remember my name and debt collectors who call 3 times a day. They're not the same thing. They could be, if you let me help. I don't need your help, Mr. Sterling. I need you to stop looking at me like I'm some kind of project to be fixed. She walked toward the elevator. Xander stood watching her go, frustrated and fascinated in equal measure. That evening, Xander's phone rang as he was reviewing contracts. The caller ID showed an international number. Mr. Sterling, this is Jean-Philippe Laurent. We have a serious problem. Laurent was a French investor, crucial to Sterling. Global's European expansion. Xander's stomach sank. What kind of problem? Laurent launched into rapid French, speaking too quickly for Xander to follow with his basic language skills. Something about contracts, a clause, major concerns. Monsieur Laurent, I apologize, but my French isn't... Could we possibly... No! This must be handled now. The contract you sent, clause 17, it is completely unacceptable. You think you can... More rapid French followed. Xander's regular French translator was on vacation. He needed help immediately. Through his office doorway, he could see Victoria in the penthouse living room reading to Jamie on the couch. He had no choice. Monsieur Laurent, please hold one moment. Xander walked to the living room. Victoria, I need your help. Emergency. She looked up. What kind of emergency? French investor, very upset. I can't understand him well enough to... You want me to translate? Please. Victoria studied him for a moment, then nodded. Jamie, sweetheart, keep reading. I'll be right back. In the office, Xander handed her the phone. His name is Jean-Philippe Laurent. Victoria took the phone and something in her posture changed. She became someone else, poised, professional, completely in command. Monsieur Laurent, bonjour, je suis Victoria Chen, consultante culturelle pour Sterling Global. Her French was flawless, Parisian accent perfect. She listened as Laurent spoke, making small sounds of acknowledgement. Then she began responding in rapid, sophisticated French. Xander couldn't follow the conversation, but he could read the tone. She was calming him, clarifying something, suggesting solutions. 5 minutes later, she switched to English. Mr. Sterling, the issue is clause 17 in the distribution agreement. The French translation inadvertently suggests Sterling Global would have unilateral termination rights, which implies you don't trust the partnership. Monsieur Laurent finds this offensive and potentially prejudicial to French labor law. Can we fix it? Victoria spoke to Laurent again in French, proposing something. Laurent responded. She countered. He agreed. He'll accept a revised clause that emphasizes mutual consent for any changes with a 90-day notification period. It preserves your legal protections while respecting partnership equality. That's perfect. Tell him we'll have revised documents by Monday. Victoria relayed this. Laurent's tone softened considerably. They spoke for another minute, and then Victoria handed the phone back. He wants to speak with you, she said. He's satisfied with the solution. Xander took the phone. Monsieur Laurent? Mr. Sterling, your consultant is extraordinary. Most Americans cannot navigate French business culture with such elegance. You are fortunate to have her. After the call ended, Xander set down the phone and looked at Victoria. She was already heading toward the door. Thank you, he said. You just saved another partnership. It was a simple translation error. It was sophisticated cultural problem-solving. There's a difference. Victoria paused in the doorway. Mr. Sterling, it's Xander, please. Xander, she said, and something in the way she said his name made his chest tighten. I appreciate the recognition, but I'm not interested in being your emergency solution every time something goes wrong. That's not what this is, isn't it? You need a nanny, I'm here. You need a translator, I'm convenient. What happens when you don't need anything? Do I go back to being invisible? You were never invisible to me. Yes, I was. For the first 3 days, you looked through me like I was furniture. The truth of it stung. You're right, I'm sorry. Victoria softened slightly. I'm not angry. I just need you to be clear about what this is. Am I your employee or am I your... what? Problem solver? Cultural consultant? Trophy proof that you value diversity? You're someone I'm beginning to realize I completely underestimated. She held his gaze for a long moment. Be careful, Xander. You're starting to see me as a person. That complicates things. She left him standing in his office, heart pounding, wondering when exactly he'd lost control of this situation. The weekend passed. Xander found excuses to be home, telling himself it was to spend time with Jamie. But he noticed everything about Victoria. How she hummed French songs while cooking. How she spoke to Jamie with genuine respect, never condescension. How she moved through his penthouse with quiet grace, making the sterile space feel almost like a home. Monday brought a new challenge. Sterling Global was hosting Japanese clients for dinner, an important relationship that could open doors throughout Asia. Xander's executive chef sent the proposed menu for approval. Xander forwarded it to his assistant without thinking much about it. An hour later, Victoria appeared in his office doorway holding a printed copy of the menu. We need to talk about this dinner, she said. What about it? This menu is culturally problematic. Xander looked up. How so? Your clients are from Osaka, correct? And this dinner is to celebrate the preliminary partnership agreement? Yes. Then you can't serve them octopus, eel, or persimmons. Why not? Those are all high-end ingredients. Victoria sat down across from his desk. In Osaka business culture, particularly for celebration dinners, octopus can imply complexity and entanglement, not the message you want for a new partnership. Eel has associations with water that flows away, suggesting impermanence. And persimmons are traditional funeral foods in that region. Xander stared at her. How do you possibly know that? I lived in Osaka for 6 months during my father's posting there. I studied the regional variations in Japanese business culture. What should we serve instead? Red snapper represents celebration and good fortune. The color red is auspicious. Seasonal vegetables from Kyoto region would show cultural awareness. And sake from a respected Osaka brewery would be a respectful tribute to their home. Xander picked up his phone and called the chef. Change the menu according to Miss Chen's specifications. The dinner that evening was held in Sterling Global's private dining room. Victoria didn't attend, she wasn't invited, and she was with Jamie anyway. But Xander had studied her notes carefully, and when the Japanese clients arrived, he greeted them with a brief phrase in Japanese she'd taught him. The clients were visibly surprised and pleased. Throughout the evening, every detail reflected the cultural sensitivity Victoria had recommended. The menu, the seating arrangement, even the way gifts were presented. At the end of the night, the senior Japanese executive bowed deeply to Xander. Sterling, son, your cultural intelligence is exceptional. So many American companies treat all Asian cultures as the same. You have shown us true respect. After they left, Richard approached Xander. That was masterful. How did you know about the Osaka-specific preferences? I had an excellent cultural consultant. The nanny? She's not just a nanny, Richard. No, Richard said slowly. She's definitely not. What are you going to do about that? I don't know yet. But he was beginning to have ideas. The next afternoon, Victoria took Jamie to the Natural History Museum for their weekly educational outing. They were in the cultural exhibits looking at ancient Chinese artifacts when a voice called out behind them. "Victoria Chen, is that really you?" Victoria turned and found herself face to face with Dr. Marcus Zhang, former colleague from the State Department. He was tall, handsome, wearing a professorial blazer and looking at her with obvious surprise and concern. "Marcus," she said, smiling despite herself, "what are you doing here?" "I run the Youth International programs now, educational outreach." He gestured to a group of teenagers being led by another instructor. "But the better question is, what are you doing? Please don't tell me you're actually working as a nanny." "It's honest work, Marcus." "Of course, but Tori, you have a master's degree from Georgetown. You should be working at the UN or the State Department or—" He stopped himself. "I'm sorry. That came out wrong. I'm just concerned. We all wondered what happened to you after your father—" "Life happened," Victoria said simply. "I had to make choices." "Tori, who's this man?" Jamie asked, pressing closer to her side. "An old friend, sweetheart. Marcus, this is Jamie. I'm taking care of him for a few weeks." Marcus looked at Jamie, then back at Victoria, clearly trying to understand. "Look, can we grab coffee, catch up? I'd love to hear what you've been doing." "I'm kind of in the middle of—" "I insist. Tomorrow? There's a cafe near Brookings. Actually, that reminds me, we have an opening. Remote cultural analysis position. You could do it from anywhere, set your own hours, use your actual training. The pay is excellent." Victoria hesitated. A real job in her field with flexibility. It was exactly what she needed. "I'll think about it." "Please do. You're too talented to be wasted on—" He stopped, glancing at Jamie. "I mean, you deserve to use your education." They exchanged numbers, and Marcus was just giving her the cafe address when a voice came from behind them. "Victoria?" She turned to find Xander standing there wearing a suit looking like he'd come straight from the office. Jamie's face lit up. "Uncle Xander, you never pick me up." "Thought I'd make an exception today." Xander's eyes were on Marcus, his expression carefully neutral. "I'm Alexander Sterling. Dr. Marcus Zhang, Brookings Institution." Marcus shook his hand. "I'm an old colleague of Victoria's." "I see." The air between the two men felt charged with something Victoria couldn't quite identify. "We were just making plans for coffee," Marcus continued. "Catching up on old times." "How nice," Xander said, his tone perfectly polite and completely cold. "Victoria, I actually need you this evening, business dinner with clients. I'll need your cultural consulting." "This evening?" Victoria frowned. "You didn't mention—" "It just came up, last minute, unavoidable." Marcus looked between them, clearly sensing the tension. "Well, I should get back to my group. Victoria, think about that position, and coffee. I'm free all week." After he left, Victoria crossed her arms. What was that about? What was what about? You showing up here, the sudden business dinner. You've never picked up Jamie before. I thought it would be nice. You're being weird. I'm being protective of my nephew. He's a colleague, Xander, not a threat. I didn't say he was a threat. Jamie tugged on Victoria's sleeve. Tori, I'm hungry. Can we get a snack? Of course, sweetheart. As they walked toward the museum cafe, Xander fell into step beside them. Victoria glanced at him, confused by his sudden presence, by the strange edge in his voice. She didn't recognize jealousy when she saw it, but Xander was beginning to recognize it in himself. That evening, after another impromptu business dinner where Victoria's presence turned out to be genuinely necessary, Xander walked her to the door. I'm expanding your role, he said abruptly. Excuse me? I need you available for business functions. Evening meetings, client dinners. The nanny agency can send someone else for Jamie during those hours. I need you with me. Victoria stared at him. 2 days ago, I was supposed to be invisible. Now I'm essential? I was wrong about you. I'm correcting that. By taking me away from Jamie? The whole reason you hired me? By utilizing your actual skills. Victoria, you're wasted as a nanny. That's not for you to decide. I'm offering you more money, more responsibility, work that actually uses your education. And if I say no? Xander paused. Why would you say no? Because I don't like feeling controlled. Because I made a commitment to Jamie. Because I don't understand why you suddenly care what I do with my time. I care because... He stopped himself. Because you're valuable to the company. The company, she repeated. Right. What did you want me to say? Nothing, it's fine. What's the salary increase? Name your price. Victoria laughed, but there was no humor in it. You really think everything has a price, don't you? Everyone has needs. I'm offering to meet yours. What if my needs include being seen as more than a convenient solution to your problems? The words hung in the air between them. I do see you, Xander said quietly. More than you know. Victoria held his gaze. Something passed between them, electric and dangerous. I'll take the expanded role, she said finally. But on my terms. I work with Jamie during the day. Business functions in the evening when necessary. And you don't get to order me around like staff. If you want my help, you ask. Like an equal. Agreed. And stop sending your COO to spy on me. Vanessa's not. She's been watching me like a hawk for 3 days. I know threat assessment when I see it. Xander had the grace to look uncomfortable. She's protective of the company. She's territorial. There's a difference. Victoria picked up her bag. Good night, Xander. Victoria? She turned. That job Marcus mentioned, at Brookings. Are you going to take it? I don't know. Why? Because if you do, I'll lose you. The vulnerability in his voice surprised them both. You don't have me to lose, Victoria said softly. I'm just your employee. She left and Xander stood at the door long after the elevator had carried her away. Just an employee, right. He was lying to himself and he knew it. The following week brought a new rhythm. Victoria worked with Jamie during the day, teaching him, caring for him, filling the penthouse with warmth and laughter. In the evenings when needed, she attended business functions as Xander's cultural consultant. She was brilliant at it. Every client was impressed. Every negotiation went smoother with her insights. Sterling Global's reputation for cultural intelligence grew rapidly, and Vanessa Hartley's resentment grew with it. At a company dinner with potential German investors, Vanessa made her move. The dinner was at an expensive restaurant, a private room with a dozen Sterling Global executives and their guests. Victoria sat beside Xander, helping him navigate the cultural nuances of the negotiation. Midway through the meal, Vanessa spoke up, her voice carrying across the table. Victoria, I'm curious. How does someone go from the State Department to child care? That's quite a career trajectory. The table went quiet. Victoria took a sip of water, her expression calm. Life rarely follows the trajectory we plan, Ms. Hartley, but I've found that every experience teaches us something valuable. But surely you must miss the prestige, the important work. Changing diapers and making sandwiches must be quite a step down. All work is important if it's done with integrity, and taking care of a child who needs support seems quite important to me. Of course. Vanessa's smile didn't reach her eyes. Though I imagine the salary difference must be significant. Xander set down his fork. Vanessa, I'm just making conversation. You're being rude. Victoria touched Xander's arm gently. It's fine. It's not fine, Xander said, his voice cold. Victoria has solved more international crises in 3 weeks than our consulting team solved in 3 months. Her expertise and integrity are assets to this company. If you can't recognize that, perhaps you're not the strategic thinker I thought you were." The table was completely silent now. Vanessa's face flushed. "I was simply undermining a colleague," Xander finished, "in front of clients. Unprofessional and unnecessary." One of the German investors spoke up. "Mr. Sterling, your consultant has been most impressive this evening. Her understanding of German business culture is exceptional." "Thank you," Victoria said quietly. The dinner continued, but the dynamic had shifted. Vanessa was subdued, clearly humiliated. Victoria was gracious, not gloating. But Xander noticed everything. The way the other executives looked at Victoria with new respect. The way Vanessa's jaw was clenched. The way Victoria's hand had briefly tightened on his arm when he'd defended her. After the dinner, walking to the car, Victoria was quiet. "Thank you," she said finally, "for what you said in there." "I meant every word." "I know. That's what makes it matter." They reached his car. The driver opened the door, but neither moved to get in. "Vanessa's going to retaliate," Victoria said. "You embarrassed her in front of executives and clients. Let her try. Xander, I'm serious. She's been with you for 8 years. I've been here for 3 weeks. Who do you think the board will support? They'll support results. And you've delivered more results than she has recently. That's not how corporate politics works. Then maybe corporate politics need to change." Victoria smiled despite herself. "You're very idealistic for a billionaire. Only recently, I wonder why that is." They stood under the streetlight, close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. "I should go home," she said. "Victoria, can I ask you something?" "Yes?" "Why do you really work as a nanny? I've seen your background. You could have consulting jobs, teaching positions, a dozen opportunities. Why this?" Victoria looked away. "You read the file, you know why. I know about your mother, the debt, but there has to be more to it." "What more do you need?" "I'm broke. I need money. Nanny work pays daily." "You're not broke. You're principled. There's a difference." She met his eyes again. "What do you want me to say?" "The truth." Victoria took a breath. "My mother has Alzheimer's. Early onset. She's 56 years old, and some days she doesn't remember who I am. She asks for my father, who died trying to pay for her care. The debt collectors call every day. The facility threatens discharge every week, and Her voice caught. "I couldn't be halfway across the world on diplomatic missions while she forgot my name. So I quit my job. I came home, and I take whatever work lets me stay close and pay the bills. That's the truth. Is it enough for you?" Xander felt something crack open in his chest. "Victoria, I'm sorry. I don't need your pity." "It's not pity, it's admiration. You sacrificed everything for someone you love. That's not failure, that's strength." "Then why does it feel like failure?" "Because you're human, and humans are allowed to grieve what they've lost, even when they made the right choice." Victoria's eyes glistened with tears she refused to let fall. "I should go." This time Xander didn't stop her. He watched her get into the car, watched the taillights disappear into traffic, and he knew with absolute certainty that he was falling in love with Victoria Chen. The woman who'd given up everything for love, the woman who refused to be bought, the woman who was somehow making him want to be a better man. The only problem was he had no idea how to tell her that without making it sound like just another business transaction. And Victoria Chen didn't make deals. She made choices based on principle. He'd have to learn the difference. Victoria was running late on Thursday afternoon, which almost never happened. Jamie's doctor appointment had gone longer than expected, and now she was rushing back to the penthouse with groceries for dinner. She took the service elevator, her mind on a dozen tasks at once. When she reached the penthouse level, she heard voices from Xander's office. The door was slightly ajar. She shouldn't have stopped, should have walked straight to the kitchen. But she heard her own name and instinct made her pause. "If you're planning to make this permanent," a man's voice said. She recognized it as Xander's attorney. "You should put her on official payroll. The optics are cleaner that way." "I'm working on it," Xander replied. "And the mother situation? That's expensive. Long-term Alzheimer's care, you're looking at $7,000–8,000 a month minimum." "I'm aware. So structure it properly. Lock her into a long-term contract with appropriate incentives. Make sure she understands what she's getting and what you expect in return." Victoria felt her stomach drop. Her hands tightened on the grocery bags. "I don't want her to feel obligated," Xander said. "That's exactly what you want," the attorney countered. "Legal obligation protects both parties. Personal obligation creates complications. Keep it professional, keep it contractual, and everyone knows where they stand." Victoria backed away from the door, her heart pounding. "Lock her in. Appropriate incentives. Keep it professional." He was trying to buy her, make her dependent on him so she couldn't leave. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out with shaking hands. Summit Memory Care Facility. "Hello? Ms. Chen? This is Director Peterson. I'm calling about your mother." Victoria's heart stopped. "Is she okay?" "She's stable, but she had an episode this morning. She became very agitated, didn't recognize the staff. We had to call in additional support." A pause. "Ms. Chen, I need to be direct with you. Your account is 3 months past due. That's $25,500. Without payment, we'll have to begin discharge procedures tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Victoria's voice cracked. "I just need more time. I've given you all the time I can. I'm very sorry, but we have protocols. If payment isn't received by 5 p.m. tomorrow, your mother will need to transition to a different facility." "Please, I'm working on it. 5 p.m. tomorrow, Ms. Chen. I'm truly sorry." The call ended. Victoria stood in the hallway, groceries hanging from her numb hands, the world tilting beneath her feet. $25,000 by tomorrow. She had $1,800 in her checking account. Behind her, Xander's voice drifted from the office. "I want to make her an offer she can't refuse. Something that gives her security and gives me the assurance she'll stay." Victoria closed her eyes. Of course. He knew about her situation, had probably known for weeks. And now he was structuring the perfect trap. Money she desperately needed, wrapped up in obligations and contracts and professional arrangements. She'd rather lose everything than be bought. Victoria walked to the kitchen mechanically, putting away groceries with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. When Xander emerged from his office 20 minutes later, she was chopping vegetables for dinner with precise, angry movements. "Victoria, there you are. I've been meaning to talk to you about something exciting." She kept chopping. "Have you?" "Yes, come to my office. I want to discuss an opportunity." "An opportunity, right? I'm making dinner." "This is important." She set down the knife carefully and turned to face him. "All right, let's talk." They walked to his office. Xander was almost vibrating with excitement, which made everything worse. He gestured for her to sit, then pulled out a folder. "I've been working on this for a week," he said. "I wanted it to be perfect." He opened the folder and slid papers across the desk. Victoria saw the sterling global letterhead, saw her name. "I'm creating a new position, Vice President of International Relations and Cultural Intelligence, and I want you to fill it." Victoria stared at the papers without touching them. "The salary is $350,000 annually, plus benefits, stock options, and..." He pulled out another paper. "A signing bonus of $100,000, immediate payment. The exact amount to cover her mother's debt plus 3 months of care." Victoria felt something cold settle in her chest. "You've thought of everything," she said quietly. "I wanted to make sure it was comprehensive. You deserve proper compensation for what? My expertise? Or my desperation?" Xander blinked. "What?" "I heard you, talking to your attorney, about locking me into a long-term contract, about the mother situation being expensive, about making sure I understand what you expect in return." His face changed. "Victoria, you misunderstood. Did I? Let me guess. This offer conveniently solves all my financial problems, and in return I commit to Sterling Global for how many years? What were the terms you and your attorney discussed?" "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" Victoria stood, her voice shaking. "Because from where I'm standing, this looks like you found my breaking point and you're exploiting it." "I'm trying to help you." "No, you're trying to own me. There's a difference." "That's not fair." "Isn't it? You knew about my situation. You knew about my mother, the debt, all of it. And you waited until I was desperate enough that I'd have no choice." "Victoria, please listen. Is this how you do business, Xander? Find people's vulnerabilities and leverage them? I thought you were different, but you're exactly what I feared. I'm offering you a legitimate position that you're qualified for. At the exact moment I'm most vulnerable. What happens if I say no? Do you fire me? Do you make it clear I'm no longer welcome? Do you remind me that I need this money? Of course not. This isn't a threat, it's an opportunity. An opportunity I can't refuse. That's what you told your attorney. Make her an offer she can't refuse." Victoria's voice broke. "I'm not for sale, Xander. Not my expertise, not my gratitude, and certainly not my loyalty. I never said—" "You didn't have to say it, you structured it. Professional obligation instead of personal obligation. Keep it contractual so everyone knows where they stand." She picked up her bag. "I know where I stand, and it's not here." "Victoria, wait. Where are you going?" "I'm leaving. I'll finish out this week with Jamie because I made a commitment to him. After that, you'll need to find someone else." "You're quitting?" "I'm choosing my dignity over your money. Some of us still have that option." "That's not what this is about." "Then what is it about?" Victoria spun to face him. Tell me honestly, Xander, when you made this offer, when you calculated this exact salary with this exact signing bonus, were you thinking about what I deserved? Or were you thinking about what I needed so badly I couldn't say no?" The silence that followed was damning. "That's what I thought," Victoria said quietly. She pulled her access badge from her pocket and set it on his desk. "I'll work through Sunday. That gives you time to find a replacement for Jamie." "Victoria, please." But she was already gone, the elevator doors closing on his outstretched hand. Xander stood alone in his office, staring at the badge on his desk. The VP offer papers lay scattered where she'd left them. He'd meant it as recognition, as support, as exactly what she'd accused him of. A way to keep her close by making her financially dependent. He picked up his phone to call her, then stopped. What would he say? That she was wrong. She wasn't. That he hadn't calculated the exact amount she needed? He had. He tried to solve her problem with money, just like he solved everything with money. And he'd lost her. The next 5 days were the longest of Xander's life. A new nanny arrived on Friday, a competent woman in her 50s named Mrs. Patterson. She was professional, experienced, and Jamie hated her. "Where's Tori?" he asked every morning. "Miss Chen had to take another job," Xander said, the lie tasting bitter. "But she promised 2 weeks. She promised." Sometimes grown-ups have to break promises. Then grown-ups are stupid. Xander couldn't argue with that. At work, he was distracted, snapping at employees, missing details in meetings. Richard pulled him aside on Tuesday. "What's going on with you? You've been off since last week." "Nothing. I'm fine." "You're not fine. The Henderson deal, you missed 3 critical errors in the contract. That's not like you, and where's Victoria? I haven't seen her at any meetings. She left. She quit? Why? Because I'm an idiot. Richard studied him. What did you do? I tried to help her, and I made her feel bought instead of valued. Ah. Richard sat on the edge of the desk. So you offered her money when what she needed was respect. I offered her both. Did you? Or did you offer her a transaction disguised as recognition? Xander didn't answer. Here's the thing about talented people with pride, Richard said. They'd rather struggle with dignity than succeed with strings attached. If you wanted to keep her, you should have made sure she knew you valued her as a person, not as an asset. I do value her. Did you tell her that? Without mentioning salary or positions or benefits? Xander thought back to their last conversation. He talked about compensation, stock options, signing bonuses. He'd never once said what she actually meant to him. No, he admitted quietly. Then you have some work to do. That evening, Xander's sister called. She'd returned to California but kept in touch about Jamie. He's miserable without Victoria, she said. What happened? Xander explained the situation, the offer, the misunderstanding, Victoria's accusation. His sister was quiet for a long moment. Xander, can I ask you something? Did you tell Victoria how you feel about her? What do you mean? I mean, did you tell her you care about her? Not as an employee or a consultant or even a colleague, as a person, as someone you have feelings for. No, I offered her a job. Of course you did, because that's what you do. You solve problems with money and positions and structures, but Xander, this woman gave up her career to take care of her mother. She understands sacrifice and love and putting people before profit, and you tried to buy her. I was trying to help. Were you? Or were you trying to keep her close in the only way you know how? By making her financially dependent on you so she couldn't leave. The truth of it hit him like a physical blow. Oh God, that's exactly what I did. Dad would have done the same thing, his sister said gently. He thought money solved everything. And look how that turned out. He died alone because he never learned how to connect with people without controlling them. I don't want to be like him. Then don't be. Be vulnerable. Be honest. Tell Victoria how you actually feel without offering her anything in return. Let her choose you because she wants to, not because she needs to. After the call ended, Xander sat in the dark penthouse thinking. Victoria had walked away from everything to care for her mother. She'd sacrificed prestige, career, financial security, and he'd seen that sacrifice and tried to, what? Fix it, control it, leverage it. He'd made her feel like a problem to be solved instead of a person to be valued, and he'd lost her because of it. But maybe if he did this right, he could show her he understood, that he'd learned, that he could be the man who deserved her, not by buying her loyalty, by earning it. Xander spent the next 2 days making calls, organizing, planning. Not a business deal this time, a genuine gesture that asked for nothing in return. First, he called Summit Memory Care Facility. Director Peterson, this is Alexander Sterling. I'd like to make a donation to your facility's scholarship fund. A donation? How generous. How much were you thinking? $51,000, enough to cover 6 months of care for patient Rose Chen, allocated from an anonymous charitable trust. Mr. Sterling, that's incredibly generous, but anonymous means Ms. Chen can never know it came from me. It's a scholarship for families facing financial hardship. She qualifies. That's all she needs to know. I understand. Good. The funds will transfer today. Next, he called his foundation director. I want to establish a new program, the Sterling Cultural Intelligence Fellowship. Full funding for children of diplomats and international workers who faced financial hardship. Give them opportunities to use their unique skills without sacrificing family obligations. That's a wonderful idea. How did you come up with it? I met someone who showed me what real sacrifice looks like. I want to honor that. Estimated budget? $5 million for the first 5 years. And I want to offer the director position to Victoria Chen, the consultant who's been helping with international deals. Yes, pending her acceptance. This is quite a substantial program. It needs to be. Too many talented people fall through the cracks because they choose love over career. We should support that choice, not punish it. Finally, he prepared a presentation for the quarterly board meeting. Not about profits or expansions or market share. About recognition. About doing the right thing. On Thursday evening, he called Victoria's number. She didn't answer the first time, or the second. On the third call, she picked up. "What do you want, Xander?" Her voice was exhausted. "I need you to come to our quarterly board meeting tomorrow, 10 a.m. "Why would I?" "Because I owe you an apology, a real one, and I'd like to give it in front of the people who should hear it." "I don't understand." "I know, but please come. If you never want to see me again after that, I'll respect it, but give me this chance, please." A long pause. "What time?" 10 a.m. Sterling Global Boardroom. "Fine, but this is the last time, Xander." "I know." The call ended. Xander set down his phone and took a deep breath. Tomorrow he'd either get a second chance, or he'd learn to live with the biggest mistake of his life. Friday morning arrived with clear skies and Xander's stomach in knots. He'd barely slept, rehearsing what he wanted to say, second-guessing every word. The boardroom filled at 9:45, executives, directors, shareholders. Vanessa arrived looking smug, clearly expecting Victoria to be absent. At 9:58, Victoria walked in. She wore simple black slacks and a cream blouse, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She looked tired and beautiful and wary. Their eyes met across the room. Xander felt his heart stutter. She took a seat in the back, arms crossed defensively. At exactly 10, Xander called the meeting to order. "Thank you all for coming. I have several items on the agenda, but I'd like to start with a personnel matter." Vanessa perked up, clearly hoping for drama. 3 weeks ago, Xander began, "I hired someone for emergency childcare. I treated her like she was invisible, like her only value was keeping a 6-year-old quiet and out of my way." He clicked to the first slide. Victoria's photo appeared along with her credentials. What I didn't know was that Victoria Chen graduated magna cum laude from Georgetown with a master's degree in international relations, that she worked for the U.S. State Department as a cultural liaison, that she speaks 4 languages fluently and understands cross-cultural business negotiation better than anyone I've ever met. More slides appeared. The Zhao deal, the French partnership, the Japanese success. Each one highlighting how Victoria had solved problems the company's own consultants couldn't crack. In 3 weeks, Ms. Chen has saved or secured over $700 million in partnerships for this company. She's done it with grace, intelligence, and integrity. And I almost lost her because I didn't see her value until it was nearly too late. He paused, looking directly at Victoria. "I'm proposing a new executive position, Vice President of International Relations and Cultural Intelligence, and I'm recommending Victoria Chen for this role. Not because she needs the job, not because I need her to need it, but because she's earned it through demonstrated excellence." The board members nodded, impressed. "But that's not all." Xander clicked to the next slide. "I'm also announcing the establishment of the Sterling Cultural Intelligence Fellowship, a fully funded program for children of diplomats and international workers who faced financial hardship. $5 million over 5 years. It will give brilliant people the opportunity to use their skills without sacrificing family obligations. He looked at Victoria again. Her eyes were glistening. I'm offering Ms. Chen the director position for this fellowship if she chooses to accept. The board erupted in approving murmurs. Richard started a round of applause. Before we vote, Xander said, I want to make something clear. This isn't about convincing Ms. Chen to stay through financial incentives. This is about public recognition of excellence, about correcting my own failures of judgment, and about ensuring that in the future Sterling Global sees talent regardless of job title. He clicked off the presentation. The board will now vote on both proposals. All in favor? Every hand went up, even Vanessa's, though she looked like it pained her. Motion carries unanimously. Xander turned to Victoria. Ms. Chen, would you join me outside for a moment? She stood slowly and followed him out of the boardroom to the rooftop garden, a space most employees didn't even know existed. They stood among planters of flowers and small trees, the city spread out below them. I'm sorry, Xander said quietly, for everything, for not seeing you, for trying to solve your problems with money instead of respect, for making you feel bought instead of valued. Xander, please let me finish. Your mother's facility called about discharge. I paid 6 months of her care through an anonymous charitable trust. Before today, before this meeting. She'll never know it came from me unless you tell her. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. You what? I wanted money out of the equation, so you could choose freely. Not because you needed the job, but because you wanted it. Why would you do that? Because you were right. I was trying to control you, to keep you close by making you dependent, and that's wrong. You deserve to make choices based on what you want, not what you need. Tears spilled down Victoria's cheeks. I don't understand you. I don't understand myself lately, Xander admitted. I just know that meeting you changed something in me. You made me want to be better. Not just a better businessman, but a better person. The fellowship. Victoria wiped her eyes. You created an entire program. Because of you, because your story matters, because no one should have to choose between career and caring for someone they love. They stood in silence for a moment. I'm sorry too, Victoria said finally, for assuming the worst, for not giving you a chance to explain. You had every reason to assume the worst. I earned that assumption. Victoria laughed through her tears. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Both so busy protecting ourselves we couldn't see what was right in front of us. And what's in front of us? She stepped closer. I don't know yet, but maybe we could find out. Together, as equals. Equals, Xander repeated. I like the sound of that. Good, because I'm accepting both positions, but on my terms. Name them. I run the fellowship my way. I design the programs, choose the fellows, set the criteria, no interference. Done. And at work, we're colleagues, no special treatment, no using our personal relationship to influence business decisions. Wait. Xander's heart jumped. Personal relationship? Victoria smiled, and it was the first real smile he'd seen from her in days. Did you think I was going to let you create a $5 million fellowship and not investigate what that means? And what does it mean? It means you're either the most manipulative man I've ever met or you actually care about me, and I've decided to believe the second option. You should. I do care, more than I know how to say. Then don't say it. Show me, every day, through actions, not transactions. I can do that. They stood close now, the spring breeze carrying the scent of flowers around them. So we're really doing this? Victoria asked. Giving this a chance? If you're willing to take a risk on a reformed corporate tyrant. Reformed is generous. Let's say reforming. I'll take it. And there on the rooftop garden high above the city, Xander kissed Victoria for the first time, softly asking permission with every second. She answered by pulling him closer, her hands in his hair, years of walls finally coming down. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. "We should probably get back to the board meeting," Victoria said. "They can wait." Xander, "Fine, but tonight dinner, a real date. Not business, not obligation, just us." "I'd like that." They walked back to the boardroom together, and for the first time since they met, they walked as equals, as partners, as something that might, with time and trust and honesty, become love. 3 months passed in a rhythm that felt both new and inevitable. Victoria officially started as Vice President of International Relations at TIE, Sterling Global, and from day one she made it clear she wasn't there to be Xander's assistant. She ran her department with the same quiet competence she'd shown with everything else, building a team, establishing protocols, transforming how the company approached international partnerships. And the Sterling Cultural Intelligence Fellowship became her passion project. "We have 53 applications already," she told Xander one evening as they reviewed documents in his penthouse. They'd been officially dating for 2 months, taking it slow, building something real. Children of diplomats, military families, international aid workers. Every single one brilliant, every single one held back by circumstances. "How many can we fund in the first year?" "I'm thinking 10. Full support, flexible programming, mentorship from experienced professionals." Xander watched her eyes light up as she talked about the program. This was who she was meant to be. Not cleaning houses or making sandwiches, but opening doors for others the way doors had been closed to her. "You're remarkable," he said quietly. Victoria looked up, smiling. "You're biased. Completely. Doesn't make it less true." She set down her papers and moved to sit beside him on the couch. "Can I ask you something? Anything? Are you happy? Really happy? Because sometimes I worry that I complicated your perfectly organized life." Xander laughed. "Victoria, my perfectly organized life was empty. You didn't complicate it. You made it worth living." "That's very romantic for a CEO." "I'm learning. I have a good teacher." She kissed him softly. "You're not a terrible student." At work, they maintained professional boundaries. Victoria reported to the COO, not to Xander. They disagreed in meetings when they genuinely disagreed. She turned down projects she thought were ethically questionable, even when he wanted them. "The Singapore deal," she said during one executive meeting. "The terms exploit local workers. I won't support it." Xander had spent months on that deal, but he looked at the contract again, saw what she saw, and agreed. "Victoria's right. Restructure the terms or we walk," Richard whispered to him after the meeting. "A year ago, you would have closed that deal regardless." "A year ago, I didn't understand that profit at someone else's expense isn't success. It's theft." "She's changed you." "For the better, I hope." "Definitely for the better." Vanessa had quietly resigned 6 weeks after the board meeting, taking a position at another firm. Before she left, she approached Victoria in the hallway. "I owe you an apology," Vanessa said stiffly. "I treated you poorly because I was threatened. That was unprofessional. I appreciate that. For what it's worth, you're good at this. Better than I was willing to admit." Victoria extended her hand. "Good luck at your new position." Vanessa shook it, something like respect in her eyes. "You too." Jamie, meanwhile, had become Victoria's biggest supporter. His 2 weeks had long since ended, but he visited every weekend, his mother now back from California and understanding that Victoria was important to both her son and her brother. "Tori taught me to count to 100 in Mandarin," Jamie announced proudly at a family dinner. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," his mother said, then turned to Victoria. "Thank you for everything. Not just the languages, but for making him feel seen. He's easy to see. He's extraordinary. So are you. I'm glad my brother finally figured that out. One evening in late spring, Xander told Victoria he needed her for a diplomatic consultation. She'd learned to be suspicious of his vague requests. What kind of consultation? Chinese cultural protocol. I'm hosting an event and I want to make sure I handle everything properly. What kind of event? You'll see. Can you meet me tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock? This is mysterious. Trust me? Victoria studied his face, saw something nervous and excited there. All right, where? I'll send you the address. The next evening, Victoria arrived at the address Xander had sent. She blinked in surprise when she realized where she was. The Chinese consulate's cultural garden. The private garden her father had taken her to as a child. The one with the traditional landscaping and the quiet, reflecting pool. Xander stood by the entrance, wearing a suit but looking more nervous than she'd ever seen him. What are we doing here? She asked. Your father used to bring you here. You told me that once. I did. But this garden isn't open to the public. How did you? I called in a favor. With Chairman Zhao, actually. He arranged private access. Xander took her hand. Come with me? They walked through the garden, the evening light golden on the traditional Chinese plantings. Lanterns had been hung from the trees, creating pools of soft light. And then Victoria saw her. Her mother, Rose Chen, sitting on a bench by the reflecting pool. She was dressed nicely, hair combed, looking more present than Victoria had seen her in months. Mom? Victoria hurried forward. What are you doing here? Victoria? Her mother's eyes were clear, focused. She was having one of her good days. This nice young man said you were coming. He's very handsome. Is he your boyfriend? Victoria laughed through sudden tears. Yes, Mom. This is Xander. Your father would want to meet him. Where is your father? Victoria's throat tightened. He had to go away, Mom. Remember? Oh, yes. Rose looked sad for a moment, then brightened again. But you're here. And this garden is beautiful, like when you were little. Xander approached, and Victoria saw him holding something, a small blue velvet box. Her heart stopped. Victoria, he began, and his voice was shaking slightly. 3 months ago, you told me to show you through actions, not words. I've tried. Every day I've tried to be the man who deserves you. Xander, please let me finish before I lose my nerve. He smiled, and she saw genuine vulnerability there. My father taught me that business is about leverage, finding someone's weakness and exploiting it. Your father taught you that diplomacy is about partnership, building something together based on mutual respect and shared purpose. He knelt down on one knee, right there in the garden where her father used to take her, where her mother sat watching with clear eyes. I want to spend the rest of my life learning your father's lesson, with you as my teacher, my partner, and my wife. Victoria Chen, will you marry me? Victoria looked at the ring, at Xander's hopeful face, at her mother smiling gently on the bench. You brought my mother, she said, her voice breaking, on one of her good days. I called the facility every day this week asking about her condition. They said today she was having clarity, so I asked if she could come. I wanted her here for this. Victoria knelt down in front of him so they were eye to eye. You researched my childhood memories. You called in diplomatic favors. You tracked my mother's good days. You're either the most manipulative man I've ever met, or you actually listened to every word I've said for 3 months. I listened to everything. Good. Because my answer is yes, Xander Sterling. Yes to partnership. Yes to building something together. Yes to all of it. He slid the ring onto her finger, and it was perfect. Simple, Elegant, exactly what she would have chosen. They kissed there in the garden, and when they pulled apart, her mother was clapping softly. "Your father would approve," Rose said, and for a moment she was completely herself. "He always wanted you to find someone who sees who you really are." Victoria sat beside her mother on the bench, and Xander sat on her other side, and they watched the sun set over the garden together. The wedding took place 3 months later at the Kennedy Center, where Victoria's father had once worked on cultural exchange programs. It was small by billionaire standards, perhaps 80 people, but every person there mattered. Former colleagues of Samuel Chen from the diplomatic corps. Business leaders who'd worked with Xander. The first 10 fellows from the Sterling Cultural Intelligence Fellowship. Jamie, of course, as ring bearer, taking his job very seriously. Victoria wore a simple ivory dress. Xander wore a tuxedo and couldn't stop smiling. The ceremony was bilingual with portions in both English and Mandarin. When they exchanged vows, Victoria spoke first. "Xander, you taught me that real power comes from seeing people clearly, from valuing them not for what they can do for you, but for who they are. You saw me when I was invisible. You challenged me to want more than survival. You made me believe in partnership again." Xander's voice was thick with emotion when he replied, "Victoria, you taught me that. Vulnerability isn't weakness. That integrity matters more than profit. That the best investments are in people, not portfolios. You changed my life by simply being yourself. And I promise to spend the rest of our lives making sure you never regret taking a chance on a reformed corporate tyrant." "Reformed is generous," she said, making everyone laugh. "I'm still working on it." When they kissed, Jamie cheered loudly enough to make the entire audience laugh. At the reception, Chairman Zhao gave a toast. "I met Victoria's father many years ago. Samuel Chen taught me that true partnership requires seeing beyond surface to substance. Today, his daughter carries on that legacy, and she has found a partner worthy of her father's approval." Rose Chen, having another good day, squeezed Victoria's hand during the speeches. She wouldn't remember this tomorrow, but today she was present for her daughter's happiness, and that was enough. 2 years later, Victoria sat in her home office reviewing applications for the fellowship's 3rd cohort. The program had grown beyond her wildest expectations. 50 fellows now, 3 of them working at Sterling Global in leadership positions. "Tori," Jamie's voice called from downstairs. He was 10 now, spending weekends with them regularly, speaking 3 languages fluently and talking about becoming a diplomat like Victoria's father. "In my office, sweetheart." He bounded up the stairs holding a tablet. "Look, my school project about international relations, I got an A+. "Jamie, this is wonderful." Victoria pulled him into a hug. "Your uncle will be so proud." "Where is Uncle Xander?" "Conference call with Tokyo, should be done soon. Can we practice my Japanese presentation while we wait? You promised." "Absolutely." Xander appeared in the doorway 20 minutes later, listening to them practice Japanese with a smile on his face. This was his life now. Not lonely penthouse nights and sterile business meetings, but a home filled with laughter and languages and love. "How'd the call go?" Victoria asked. "Excellent. And they specifically mentioned how much they appreciate working with someone who understands their culture." He sat on the arm of her chair. "I wonder where I learned that." "You had a very patient teacher." "The best teacher." His phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression softened. "It's from the fellowship office. The Memorial Fund announcement is ready for review." Victoria took the phone, reading. The Sterling Chen Memory Care Research Fund, established in honor of Rose Chen and Samuel Chen, had raised $5 million for Alzheimer's research and support services. Rose had passed away peacefully a year after the wedding on a good day, holding Victoria's hand. The grief had been profound, but Victoria had taken comfort in knowing her mother's struggle would help others. "It's perfect," she said quietly. Xander wrapped his arms around her. "Your parents would be proud of you. Of us, we built this together." Jamie looked up from his tablet. "When I grow up, I want to start a program like yours, but for kids who want to learn diplomacy." "You can do anything you want, Jamie," Victoria said. "That's the whole point." That evening, after Jamie had been picked up by his mother and the house was quiet, Victoria and Xander sat in their home office, working side by side on different projects. His laptop showed quarterly reports. Hers showed fellowship applications. Victoria paused, looking at the desk. 2 items sat there in a small frame: her old elite care agency NANNY badge and her current nameplate from Sterling Global. Victoria Chen Sterling, Executive Vice President of Global Cultural Relations and Intelligence. "Remember when you were just trying to keep Jamie from putting Legos in the air vents?" Xander asked, noticing where she was looking. "I remember you treating me like furniture." "My biggest mistake." "Your biggest mistake was thinking coffee could fix everything," he laughed. "You said that to me the very first day." "I was right. You usually are." He closed his laptop and turned to face her. "Can I tell you something? Always. I love this. This life we've built. The work, the fellowship, the family. But mostly I love that we built it together, as equals, as partners." Victoria set down her pen and moved to sit in his lap, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Me too, even though you're still occasionally impossible in meetings." "Only occasionally?" "I'm being generous. I appreciate that." They sat together in comfortable silence, the city lights visible through the windows. 2 lives that had collided by accident and merged by choice. A poor nanny who solved a $500 million deal in 10 minutes. A millionaire CEO who learned that the best investment he'd ever make wasn't in markets or mergers, but in seeing people, really seeing them, for who they truly are. And together they'd built something worth more than any deal, any contract, any fortune. They'd built a partnership based on respect, challenge, growth, and love. The kind that changes everything. What did you think of Victoria and Xander's story? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all our stories. And check out more emotional stories by clicking right here on the final screen.